What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics, and today we got a reaction to Supertramp's album, Crisis? What Crisis? Brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Trucker Kev. Thank you, Trucker Kev. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons that make this thing go. We could not do it without you. Check out that Patreon link below, or the Patreon link on the end screen, if you would like to help us out. Okay, got a little bit of Supertramp up. I did Crime, me and Trey did Crime of the Century a long time ago. I did Breakfast in America for Kev a little while back, but I don't know anything about this album. Never heard this album. I don't really know anything about it. I do now because I did a lot of research. But we'll jump in first to what Trucker Kev has to say. Then I got some research for you. Then we'll get into this album. Trucker Kev says, coming very strong on the sales and new fan base that was found with their previous album in 1974, The Great Crime of the Century, the band released quickly another one the following year. Crisis, What Crisis is a very unique album as far as reception through the years. Yes, it is. This would be their first album where they would cross overseas and record in America. More on that later. Still staying quite strong in the progressive rock-fused rock and roll roots on this one. Some people think this album feels very rushed. Many members of the band were very disenchanted after it was done. It received fair reviews, but there were some very positive reviews originally back in 1975. The interesting thing that really stands out other than the FM AOR rock is this album garnered no regular top 40 mainstream hits. What it did, though, was give very warm songwriting and solid musicianship. Some members would have definitely, through the years, say this is one of their favorite albums the band did. Many Supertramp fans of the last 20 years have decided this is their favorite album. This is a very, very good album. My rating will reflect that. But you're not going to get Kev's rating till the end. After a very successful tour promoting the previous album, Crime of the Century, there's not a whole lot of new material when they went to Los Angeles' A&M studios. Many of the songs found in the album were left over from Crime of the Century, but there wasn't enough to fill an album, so therefore they had to write a few songs to go along with it. The classic FM radio favorite nowadays, Sister Moonshine with the 12-string ringing guitar, many would cite thinking this would be something that later on in the following album in 1977, even in the quietest moments, the classic Give a Little Bit. Personally, I think the way the songs flow and the structures album is very, very well done. It is a great Supertramp album if you become familiar with the band. It's not really what I would call a jumping off point, but after you've heard a few albums and you know their style between Rick and Dave and the rest of them and their strong writing ways, then that's what you're going to get. You do get the dual vocals throughout, alternating sometimes to call and response together, which is always great, right? Opening up with a nice little fade in with Easy Does It. It kind of opens itself right up and goes into Sister Moonshine. And from there, it just goes along with some great musicianship and a whole lot more. So always great info from Kev. I've got it as their fourth studio album, released in 1975. Kev alluded to it. It was recorded in London and in Los Angeles. Went to 20 in the UK, 44 in the US, 12 in Canada. Having achieved that great commercial success with Crime of the Century, pressure was on from them from the record company to get that follow-up as quickly as possible, as Kev alluded to. Now, while touring on the west coast of North America, they unintentionally gained extra time when Hodgson injured his hand, forcing the band to cancel the rest of the tour and leaving them with nothing better to do than work on the album. Despite this, the band still had no time to rehearse for the album, and much like Indelibly Stamped, which is from 1971, songwriters Rick Davis and Roger Hodgson had no vision for a completed album worked out. Furthermore, their busy touring schedule left them no time for writing songs. So when they entered the recording studio in LA, they had only the leftover songs that Kev talked about. So they had to stop recording at one point so they could write two new songs, one of which was Ain't Nobody But Me. Hodgson was very unhappy with the album, describing it as a rush job with none of the cohesion of Crime of the Century. Bassist Dougie Thompson concurred. We thought that the Crisis album was a little bit disjointed, and the band as a whole at the time didn't really like that album. But in the mid-'80s, Roger came back and called it his favorite Supertramp album, which is what Kev alluded to, because all of them gave interviews saying they didn't like this album, but later on they kind of changed their mind. Crisis, What Crisis is a line in the film The Day of the Jackal from 1973. Hodgson stated that this title came to mean more to us as a title than it did to other people because it really was a crisis album. We learned how not to make an album coming right off the road and going into the studio. We really didn't enjoy making it, and in the end, it was kind of a patch job. And remember, he kind of changed his mind on that in the 80s. All songs, of course, written by Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson. I'll let you know who's on lead vocals on these. If you've never been with us before, the music will not be in the video, but it's going to be at a Vimeo link below, so click on that and follow along with us. And we'll go to the opener, Easy Does It, with Roger on vocals. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Trucker Kev. Easy Does It, just a very smooth, enjoyable 2 minutes, 18 seconds. I just wished it was longer, right? But I mean, you got all kinds of musicianship on a song that seems dialed back, because you got Rick on the organ and on the synths and on the harmonica. You got Roger on the flute, the electric guitar, and the 12-string acoustic guitar. But Roger sounds really good on this. And it's really just about, I think, knowing yourself and thinking well of yourself. That's kind of how I interpret it. Now we go right into Sister Moonshine. Roger once again on lead vocals. Their third single, but did not chart, and none of them. One of them's going to barely chart in the UK when we get to the singles, but I mean, Kev alluded to this, no top 40 hits in America. All right, Sister Moonshine. Really good song as well. A little abstract on the songwriting, but really well done. I think one of the things I noticed these first two songs, we're coming off Crime of the Century, which is just almost totally piano and keyboard dominated, right? These first two songs let us know we're in for a different Supertramp right here. Very much guitar dominated and very well done, but a rich instrumentation on any Supertramp song. But first two songs, definitely guitar driven. Now we go to the third track, Ain't Nobody But Me. We're going to have Rick on lead vocals for the first time on this album. Second single, we're going to let this thing run into the next song, A Soapbox Opera by Roger, because Trucker Kev said he wanted me to do it that way, that it segues nicely. So we'll just let this flow as one piece. All right, we'll start out with Ain't Nobody But Me, where we had Rick on his first lead vocal. More keyboards on this one, after I just said there wasn't a lot, but very rich arrangement, which really builds kind of on the drama of this story. Some harmonies on the chorus is also nice. Nice horns with the harmonies dialed back on the arrangement with about 2 minutes left, and then at 1 minute it kicked in. Yes, I had to take notes because I knew I was listening to two songs, and I would forget after I listened to A Soapbox Opera what I thought of Ain't Nobody But Me. But basically, it's a threatening song, right? It's a threatening song. This person wronged him, and he said, sometimes I'm Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So if you want to stay alive, just give me all you've got to give, and then perhaps I'll let you live. And I'm going to try for you, going to lie for you, going to die for you. Hush, baby, stop your crying. Oh, yes, I know that I've been lying. So that one was really well done. And then we just went right into A Soapbox Opera, where we're going to go back to Roger on lead vocals. This one had a very dramatic arrangement, right? Lots of keys and strings, especially at the start and at the end. It kind of builds up, and I think it's an indictment of organized religion is basically what it is. So I'm a Christian, a strong Christian, so I agree with a lot of what he says, and some of it I don't. Like, he basically doesn't like the rules, and so he thinks it should be different. But really well done. I thought that song was really almost catchy in an odd kind of way. I don't think he wrote it to be catchy, but well done. So now we're going to get to the last song on the first side. We got Rick on lead vocals on this. We got Another Man's Woman, which can always turn out to be a dicey situation, right? Another Man's Woman. Quite a journey on that one, right? We had a good coda or outro there with all kinds of instrumentation coming in, and they let that thing run for a little while, which is kind of classic Supertramp that we haven't seen a lot of yet on this album. But the story is, he knows he's with this other man's woman, and she's tearing him apart. He just wants to get over it, but he can't. So he's like, please tell me you love me. I'm praying that you do. So just another well done song, and a very interesting way they did the melody right on the chorus. That piano is almost out of sync with how he's singing. So it makes it quite interesting. Probably my favorite song so far, not to give you any spoilers. And now we'll start off with the second side, and we're going to have Roger on vocals. And so we got Lady. This was the lead single. It's the one that went to 53 in the UK and 15 in Ireland, the only singles to chart anywhere. All right, Lady, just all kinds of different things going on there with the arrangement, right? I can see why, especially the top half of the song, that it was released as a single. I don't think it's the best song I've heard on here so far, so I'm kind of surprised it was released as the lead single, but I don't know, man. You know, the way they choose to sing sometimes is beyond comprehension, but it's not a bad song at all. It just, you know, he wants this woman, and that's kind of the story. But I thought the instrumentation everywhere, I mean, from even at the end there, we're getting some snapping and all kinds of different things and harmonies in here. So really well put together song. And really the last two songs, Another Man's Woman and this one, Lady, they're really flexing their prog rock chops a little bit more than the other songs. Now we go to Rick, another lead vocal on Poor Boy. All right, Poor Boy. I quite like that one. And we had a lot of interesting arrangement on the right instrumentation. Wurlitzer piano for Rick on this one, and Roger is on the electric on this one, and also on the cello, right? John Anthony Hellwell is on bass clarinet. So that was that noise you got there the last like minute and a half. So that was kind of the highlight for me. But I thought it was really well done, and a really good story, right? Poor boy. He's a poor boy who doesn't care because he's got the girl, and he talks about, you know, all these people who trying to get rich, and really they're never happy. I mean, and nothing's changed. This was 1975. Nothing's changed in 2024. But I thought it also, the songwriter is really good, had a good message, just a nice little vibe there. All right, we got 3 tracks left. We got Just a Normal Day. We got Rick and Roger credited for dual vocals on this one. All right, Just a Normal Day. So a really cool going back and forth, trading back and forth, like verse by Rick, chorus by Roger. And Rick is, this song about depression, right? Which really wasn't written too much in 1975. It's out and right, depression. Roger tells him in the chorus, look, dude, like, I don't know the reason. I don't know what to say. It just seems a normal day. That's where we get the Normal Day title from. And I've got to live my own life. I just can't spare the time because you got strange things on your mind. Probably don't tell one of your friends that if they're telling you they're down and depressed. But at the very last verse, Rick just says basically, yeah, it's pretty much my fault. I eat a lot, sleep a lot, passing the time of day. Maybe I'll find my way. Who am I kidding? Yes, it's just myself. So a really well-written song. We're up to our penultimate track. We got The Meaning with Roger on lead. All right, The Meaning. It's the first song on here that did not work for me. Although I will say this, the musicianship and arrangement was really good. And it kind of salvaged the song for me. Because at first I'm like, this just does not work. It's definitely one of those songs I would assume that they just threw together in the studio. Because it's really nothing to the lyrics. Right? It's a bunch of repetition. But the arrangement is nice, so it's not a total loss. And now we finish this off with another Roger lead vocal, Two of Us. All right, Two of Us, obviously much more dialed back. I thought Roger sounded great on this. I just really liked it. Just a beautiful, beautiful song on that one. We got Rick on the harpsichord on this one, and Roger's on the pump organ, so it gives it that nice sound, and that bass clarinet from John Anthony Hellawell is on there as well. So I thought that song was really well done. All this stuff's going on, but as long as the two of us are here, we can make it through. Now, before we get to my final thoughts, Kev says, well, I'm not going to break it down in honorable mentions and favorites. I'll just simply mention standouts to me on this album. Sister Moonshine, Ain't Nobody But Me, a soapbox opera, fantastic lady with all of its different tempo changes, and the nice closer, Two of Us. And I think and his final rating on this is an 8.25. So I think it's interesting because usually Kev and I have pretty much the same favorites. And we have totally different favorites except for one. I think it kind of tells you the reason why people were kind of up in the air on this album. My honorable mentions, Easy Does It, that first track, and Sister Moonshine. My faves are going to be Another Man's Woman, Poor Boy, and this last song, Two of Us, just beautiful. So now we get to my overall score. Obviously, it's not Crime of the Century or Breakfast in America. They don't claim that it is. Not every album's going to be. Those two albums are fantastic, right? So I'm going to be at a very strong 7.75 on this. I still think it's a really good album. I don't think there's any standout track on this. I think that's okay, but I think it's a very consistent album and very well done considering especially how they had to make it. So let me know what your favorite tracks are below. What do you think of this thing, right? I want to hear the thoughts, man. Where do you think this ranks in their catalog? Do you like it? Do you not like it? All right, guys, if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up and hit that big red subscribe button. We got over 2,600 videos at the time of this filming. And until next time, guys, I will see you.